Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our readers and listeners of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position, along with your favorite beverage, to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine the show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion, we want to say thanks for questions coming from our audience of SmithWeekly, including Brent S., Dave V., and Todd A. Returning to the show today is Darin Labrenz, President, CEO, and Director of Pure Gold Mining, a Canadian gold developer progressing the construction of the Pure Gold Red Lake mine in the Red Lake Mining District, Ontario. The company is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol PGM and also on the London Stock Exchange under the symbol PUR, and also on the US OTC markets under the symbol LRTNF. Darin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Andrew. How are you doing?
Good. Well, Darin, how are you holding up with COVID shutdown orders?
I'm doing very well. We've transitioned, I think relatively seamlessly with, corporate offices implementing a work from home strategy, and out at site, we've got a whole series of policies and procedures really designed to protect the workforce and our contractors and operate efficiently. So yeah, we're doing quite well. Thank you.
Well, Darin, what issues have come up with regards to COVID? Has there been any delays? And sorry, Darin, I keep referring to this as Matson, but in fact, you guys have it called a Pure Gold Red Lake mine.
Yes, this is something, again, that we've been monitoring since the early start of the year as the pandemic started to evolve. As you probably know, the mining activity in Ontario has been deemed an essential service. And so it is one of the businesses that are allowed to continue to operate with again, a series of policies and procedures put in place to design to protect the workforce. So at site, what we've done is, we've implemented, increased cleaning practices. We've got physical distancing in place. We've staggered, people through the lunchroom, staggered people through the mine dries, and so forth. We're restricting our meeting sizes and doing virtual meetings as much as possible. And again, much like the corporate office, we are working from home where possible. So all of that is, has been pretty effective in protecting the safety and keeping things moving along in a relatively efficient manner. When you look at, our project is located in Red Lake, Ontario, which is northwest Ontario, pretty close to the Manitoba border, and there are no cases active in Red Lake. In fact, there's none active in all of northwest Ontario. And Manitoba, which is right next door, has just gone through the weekend without having a single new case. So it's a relatively quiet area with respect to the pandemic.
Speak just a little bit to the thought process of when you guys get into commissioning and actual production. Is there a thought about doing something where the crews are broke up into shifts that are working on site without leaving the site for weeks on end, to where you know that the crew that's at the site is 100% healthy, so you guys can work unbothered with some of the other issues that other places have, where you have potentially sick people coming and going, or basically limiting their exposure to the outside world? Is that a consideration going forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And, again, we're relatively unique in that, Red Lake is effectively a mining community of about 4,500 people. The employees that we have on site largely live and work in Red Lake. And so we're not seeing any real fly in, fly out. We don't have a camp situation in place. And so what we're doing is, obviously, we've asked people who have any kind of symptoms whatsoever not to show up at work. And that's kind of the first measure of protection. With respect to shift changes, when people, working underground and so forth, go off shift, again, we ask them to restrict their travel, to report back if there are any symptoms that develop, don't come to work, and then we're doing checks at the gate, so to speak, with respect to questionnaires and temperature checks, again, just to ensure people that are coming to site are healthy and fit for work.
We've seen some people think that all mining projects should be shut down, and I see that there is a procedure, there is means and methods to make sure that actually these operations can continue and should continue. They certainly are, in my opinion, essential, for lack of better words. critical to continue. Well, Darin, let's move on. Let's talk about construction milestones and timeline. Can you just walk the audience through the remaining construction milestones sequence and also timeline for completion?
We started, obviously we announced construction kind of late last summer. We started work on the ground in November of last year. Our underground pre-production development started in December. When you compare that to our feasibility plan, we're looking at a start there that's about 5 months ahead of schedule. And the intent with respect to that early start was to get underground, get our systems in place, and really open up the mine quicker, allowing us to access more mining areas, to get deeper faster, and at the end of the day to de-risk startup with the broader access to the mining areas that have formed the first couple of years of our mine plan. So I'm really excited about the early start. To date, we're averaging about 8 meters a day in terms of our advance rate underground, and again, compared to a plan of 5 meters per day, we're doing very, very well. Doing better than 50% better than the feasibility plan with respect to underground productivity, and that has the same effect again, that we're getting to areas quicker, using the same dollars, and we're able to open things up, and ultimately it will translate into the ability to look at our mining sequence and mine higher grade first, which is obviously what you want to do. You want to bring that cash flow forward. So underground is going very, very well. We've got a whole set of crews there, day and night shift, maintenance support, heavy duty mechanics, supervision. Our technical services is in place with engineering, geology, administration, and so things are moving very well with respect to the underground operations. On surface, we've gone through and we've built our haul road from the main portal back to the mill. We've got our mine waste rock facility in place. We've been doing work inside the mill as well. So as your listeners probably are aware, we have an existing mill infrastructure in place there, but we're upgrading that processing plant. We're moving it from a 600 ton per day plant to an 800 ton per day plant. So over the winter months, we've done a complete electrical and mechanical audit. We've got all of our electric switchgear and so forth has been certified. Our cranes are operational. We've gone through and done non-destructive testing on all the steel to make sure the integrity is good. Because we're well financed, we've been able to make smart decisions as to which equipment we want to keep and which we want to replace. And at the end of the day, we're going to see very much a new mill here with a new ball mill coming in to run it at 800 tons per day. We'll have a new gravity circuit. We've got a new gold room, and just working on the batch plant outside right now. We had a recent milestone. We opened up the roof about 2 weeks ago and pulled out the old ball mill. So we're now working on the pedestals there to get ready for the new ball mill, which is coming in July timeframe. So moving forward, looking at kind of the construction milestones that we'll go through, the surface works will accelerate as we move into the summer and early fall. Primarily, a lot of that work is inside the plant. We put in the new ball mill, the gravity circuit, the gold room, get our batch plant finished, cyanide detox. We've got a water treatment plant that'll be coming in place so towards the tail end of summer. And then moving into the fall, we start with some of the early commissioning work. At this point, we are on track for first ore delivery to the mill in Q4 of this year, likely towards the end of the year.
Okay, then we can probably expect to see some kind of first production in the month of December. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see the kind of early commissioning in December, and then really I would expect the first reportable production and cash flow to come in Q1 of next year.
And Darin, can you just clarify for us, December, with you guys already being ahead of schedule on construction, is December even earlier than what was anticipated?
It's pretty much right on schedule. We're definitely ahead of schedule with respect to the underground work. And, again, as I said, I'm really excited about the opportunities that'll provide in terms of optimizing our mining sequence. With respect to surface work, we're effectively right on schedule and right on budget at this point.
Okay, excellent. And I'll get to the budget here in just a moment. Maybe you can give some more details. Equipment manufacturers, suppliers, subcontractors, everybody seems to be flowing pretty well, even in light of COVID.
It's another area that we're obviously watching very closely is our procurement schedule. Again, we're fairly well placed with existing infrastructure on site and a relatively light build, if you will, for a mining project. We've got about 80% of our long lead items have been ordered. And so that pricing is all locked in. That gives you good certainty around the costs moving forward. We are in daily contact with all of our suppliers, and at this point, nobody has indicated that they're behind schedule or that there will be any impacts to our procurement schedule. So again, feeling quite good about that. When you look at the look at the entire procurement package, if you will, or schedule, I would say about 90% of it is coming from either Canada or the United States, and those supply chains seem relatively intact at this point. And in fact, we just had a set of structural steel arrive from California a couple of weeks back, and it was again right on schedule. So watching it very closely for any impacts, but we're on schedule at this point.
Excellent. And let's talk about budget. You guys are right on budget, you said, and then also, what is the cash position at this point?
As of our last disclosure, we had approximately 65 million in cash, an undrawn debt facility, 55 million US. So using current exchange rates, that's about 140 million Canadian in cash or cash available. When you look at the remaining project capital to complete, it's 97 million. So you're looking at a buffer there of about 43 million to get us to completion. As we move through the working capital period, we're still looking at a very strong buffer in that 25 to 30 million dollar range at the lowest point. So again, we're well placed from a financing and capital perspective.
Let's talk a little bit more about forward capital needs, Darin. Do you have plenty of capital, in your opinion, to carry through to full production and to the point where cash flow from operations will continue to carry the company?
We do, yeah. So we're really well financed. In fact, when you look at it last year, we closed a 47 million equity financing. We brought in a new cornerstone investor in Eric Sprott, who now holds 10% of the company. We followed up with a 90 million US project facility, which really gave us a lot of flexibility with respect to our capital needs moving the project forward. It allows us to continue to do some exploration work. It's allowed us to purchase some underground mine equipment rather than lease it, which will have a reduced operating cost. And it's allowed us to make some smart decisions in the mill to replace equipment and really ensure that we'll have strong mill availabilities on startup. So I feel quite comfortable with the cash position and the remaining work to be done.
With COVID-19, I know we've gotten some opportunities presented as a result of this, namely a severe disruption in U.S. shale oil, and also, of course, the collapse in the oil price. As a result of that, there's certainly more opportunity in the United States in the used equipment market for companies that are struggling and trying to offload assets that may look to be good for what you guys are doing, at least some equipment. And then also, has there been consideration for accumulating more diesel as a result of prices, or are you guys just going to let the market play out on that front?
That's a great question. We are seeing some benefits with respect to the current economic situation. Certainly, more broadly speaking, we can talk about it in a moment. The impacts on gold price and the Canadian dollar just really puts us in a position where we're perfectly timed to deliver a gold mine into the market. But speaking more specifically to the question you asked, we've had some wins in the equipment side. We're certainly seeing opportunities on employment and contracting. There's increased availability out there with respect to both employment and also the contractors that we need to build out our site. And so I think that's been quite competitive and certainly will assist us in continuing to meet our schedule as we move forward. So it's a pretty positive, constructive market for building a gold mine, COVID-19 aside.
Darin, how about the staffing process? You mentioned a little bit of that here. How is the staffing process going? Are there any major job positions that you're still looking to fill between now and commissioning?
Yeah, it's been going fantastic. We have about 60 employees that we've recruited at this point. Again, we started with the underground, having a complete set of crews underground and the supervision and mechanical maintenance planning around that. We're building out our technical services group with hires in both the engineering, surveying, and geology side. Obviously, safety and security has been in place for some time. We're building out our admin team now, and we're more broadly building out that management team in place there. So as we move into the fall, with the mill coming on stream, we'll be engaging our mill manager, the metallurgist and millwrights and so forth. It'll be attached to that function. We've seen probably since we started well over 600 resumes that have been come into the company to evaluate for employment opportunities. And so again, we're doing well. We've been able to recruit where needed, and we have a pretty strong hiring strategy for the balance of the year.
Okay, well, be careful. I might have to submit my application.
Look forward to it.
Well, look, let's talk for a moment about the sales process for the audience. Can you walk us through how you will be selling production from Madsen, and will the company be using any hedging vehicles?
So at this point, we're not considering hedging. Obviously, until we get into production, there's a pretty pretty strong risk attached to any hedging that we put in place. I'm not a huge fan of hedging, and it's something that we'll evaluate as we move forward. But it's certainly not been contemplated by the board or management group at this point. In terms of the gold production, we are in a very strong rising market. Our feasibility study came out at $12.75 an ounce as a base case last year, and that translates into 1,700 Canadian. Today we're looking at 1,700 US and a $2,400 per ounce gold price in Canadian dollar terms. So that's a $700 improvement year over year in Canadian dollar terms for the gold price. So again, that has a very strong impact on this, which is just our first phase of mining, with the ability to deliver over 700 million of additional cash flow through that first phase. In terms of the production itself, we'll be pouring doré on site, and we haven't signed any contracts in terms of refining at this point, but we've got a few budgetary quotes that we'll continue to pursue. Likely it'll get shipped out to Ottawa would be my best guess.
Can you give us an update on the exploration side? What is the company doing to extend the life of the project assets, given that we are soon coming into a depletion stage?
I'm really glad you asked that question. We're very focused here at Pure Gold with a number of themes, if you will. Location, obviously being in Red Lake, Ontario, is extremely important, but grade, size, and growth are really going to be key drivers of our value moving forward. As we've made several discoveries over the last year, and really what we did is we saw an opportunity to move very quickly into cash flow to self-fund our ongoing growth strategy. And so we took really ring-fenced about a million ounces of reserves at 9 grams per ton out of a broader 2.5 million ounce resource. We've got discoveries at surface that we've made that are already in resources. We've already done early stage engineering work on some of those areas, and we're looking to continue to drill to expand those and increase confidence, and ultimately look to layer them on to that first phase of mining. We've been drilling for the most part over the last 4 years. We took a pause as the pandemic took hold, just to restrict the movement in and out of site. But we are looking right now at restarting our exploration activities at the tail end of this month, so in the coming weeks. Initially, drilling will focus on the underground, the first 2 years of production, if you will. We made some discoveries outside of mining shapes late last year that we want to continue to drill to potentially convert into reserves and into a near-term mine plan. And then we'll transition out to those near surface discoveries to continue to move those forward to further evaluate and again continue some engineering work.
Darin, what's your plan if the company gets absorbed by a mid-tier or a major? What would you do? Would you consider going on with the transaction and working for that potential new acquisition company? What's your concerns about job security for yourself? And does the Oxygen Group continue to have plenty of work for you to do if that was to occur?
Never really been one to be too comfortable in what I'm doing or too concerned about my own job security. Obviously we're into the very speculative nature here of what may or may not happen, and it would really depend on the circumstances. I mean, typically your president and CEO does not remain unless you're looking at a merger of equals or something like that, where you're restructuring the company and putting the right people in the right places. So it would have to be a case by case, kind of evaluation of the the combination and what made the most sense. Certainly within the broader Oxygen Group, this is a really strong group of quality people and quality projects, and there's a lot of opportunities. We're always collectively looking at new opportunities and new ideas. And so I'm certain there'd be things that could come out of there as well.
Yeah, and I suspect the same. I suspect that Mark has a plate of food and on it and plenty of room to go around. And I suspect that you guys will have plenty to do if that was the case. Who knows, maybe you guys will find a uranium asset or something like that, and who knows what can happen, right?
Yeah, I think Mark's gone down that path before. Yeah, it's been a a real pleasure working with Mark. He's been, obviously, he's one of the strongest geologists I know. He's, very entrepreneurial. He's been extremely successful in his business, and it's a real pleasure to work with him at Pure Gold.
Same thought process here, a fantastic group, and really enjoy following the group and being part of what you guys are doing. Now, just wrapping up here, you guys listed on the London Stock Exchange. You guys are still on the Venture Exchange. Is there any thought process of where you guys might want to go as far as listings going forward as you finish up construction? Can you speak to if the TSX big board is the place where you want to go, or does the New York Stock Exchange American make more sense at this point?
Yeah, I think the move from the TSX Venture to the TSX big board, if you will, is a natural progression as we transition into production and cash flow. Taking on the London Stock Exchange listing on the main board there, the standard listing, in many ways that's already carried us part of the way out of venture status, and I would certainly expect to see us move across to the big board at some point in the future. With respect to upgrading in the U.S. exchanges and taking on something there, it's not something we're contemplating today. We'll see where the future takes us, but we've just gone through a London listing, and we need time for that process to settle.
Right, and we've just seen, I mentioned that because we've seen recently more of a push, if you will, by similar market cap size companies getting on the New York. Obviously, we know Equinox is bigger, but Equinox jumped on there fairly early. We've seen companies like, NextGen, which is in the uranium space, jump on there. We've seen Metalla Royalty and Mavericks Metals jump on there as well with smaller market caps. So interesting situation there. We see more of an effort to get on that New York listing as well. So excited to see what you guys are going to do on that front going forward. Well, Darin, for potential investors, for our audience who are on the sidelines, what would you say to them at this stage and at current price levels? Why should they look at Pure Gold now?
Yeah, again, it comes down to location, grade, size, and growth. We're located in Red Lake, Ontario. It's as we like to say, there's 30 million reasons to invest in Red Lake, and that's 30 million ounces of production that's come out of the district to date. With respect to grade, we're the next gold mine in Canada. We're months away from cash flow. It is one of the highest grade deposits in the world, and so that has translates into opportunities with respect to margin and continued cash flow generation. More importantly, we think we have a strong growth profile ahead of us, and we own some of the best land in Red Lake, Ontario, with that the real short-term visibility to transformational growth. So I think it's it's a great time to enter. We're nearly fully de-risked with a full financing package in place, fully funded, on schedule, on budget, delivering cash flow by the end of the year, and continue to drill, explore, looking at that the next leg up and the next part of our growth strategy. So yeah, really, I think it's a great time to purchase and buy into Pure Gold.
And the best way for investors to reach out to the company?
I would reach out at info@puregoldmining.ca, and I will see it, and we'll certainly respond, or reach us by phone 604-646-8000.
Well, Darin, let's leave it there. Thanks for taking the time to update us. Good luck on the remaining construction efforts. Best wishes to the team at Pure Gold.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Appreciate it.